Hey everybody, this is Connor, BoatsDon'tSink. Today we have our overview of Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. New set releasing tomorrow for English. I know a lot of people have really been looking forward to this one. It's sort of in the recent months, I guess even like the last 5 or 6 months, really taken over the Japanese format. Um, for a while, like it was the deck to beat, and I know a lot of people are um, maybe not hoping, but kind of expecting it to turn out the same way in English, or at least building it in hopes that it's just as powerful in English. So here is my overview of it. So we've got a top 11 this time instead of a top 10. Um, there were some cards I couldn't decide on, so and some that like aren't wouldn't make my top 10 now, but by like January or February probably do. So we've got 11 this time. Number 11, we have Swimsuit Tomoe Koga. So this card is not amazing right now. So the main effect we're looking at here is the first one. When this card is placed on the stage from your hand, look at up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, put them on top of your deck in any order, and then choose up to one of your opponent's characters and return it to his or her hand. So right now, that's not an amazing effect. The biggest things you're hitting with it are going to be like the Amelia level 3 that gives minus soul, or you might be picking up your opponent's like attack in waves Asuna or something like that. But moving forward, for like Worlds and the spring season, we'll have Heaven's Fuel coming out, we'll have Goblin Slayer coming out. Even in the mirror match, this card's pretty good. Because Bunny Girl Senpai's main strategy at level 3 is just going to be to wall up and make huge characters. Or they're one huge character that we'll get to. So this bounce utility is really powerful. And it's just going to get more powerful as we go, so I want to point this card out here. This card also has a climax combo on reverse. You can discard 2, deal 1 clock kick, which is decent. It's decent enough. It doesn't really have good synergy with the rest of the set's strategy. A lot of times, on your turn, your opponent's board is going to be empty, so you're not really going to have reverse targets for this. But the main thing we're looking at here is the bounce effect. And it also lets you stack your triggers back in any order, so you know exactly when to attack with what, and whether you need to side attack, and get extra soul off of triggers and stuff like that. So, really, really cool utility card. My actual number 10, we have First Love's Reason. So this is actually an event card. Choose one of your characters, put it into your waiting room. If you do, search your deck for a climax, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle. So, at least in my eyes, any card in this game that says search your deck for a climax is pretty powerful and worth looking at. A lot of the builds of Bunny Girl, you won't see this being used a whole lot because they're not decks that want to recur climax combos. They're more of just decks that are using their climaxes for triggers. They're playing a lot of like standby and comeback triggers to where they're just getting advantage off of triggering them, so they're not wanting to pull them out of their deck. But in some of the builds of this deck, there are some pretty strong climax combos that are definitely worth recurring over and over again. And I think this card allowing you to consistently do that is very powerful, and at least worth keeping in mind for those builds. And it's also just like anytime, like, oops, your opponent triggered 2 climaxes, let's punish them. And the main combo that this is going to work well with, you're going to have plenty of characters to be stacking into your waiting room, which is actually this one right here. So my number 9, we have Petite Devil Kohai Tomoe Koga. So this is a level 1 combo. There's a few of these in Japanese, but this is the first time we've gotten this effect printed into English. So her first ability is basically the same as the Aaron level 1, where on attack she's going to get 500 power times the number of other characters you have. In this case, she doesn't need you to be running specific characters, it's just really anything from the set. So she'll be attacking at 75 with the climax, before any other boosts. And then her climax combo itself is when she reverses battle opponent. She gains the ability until the end of your opponent's turn. When she's frontal attacked, you can return her and one of your other characters to your hand. So it's still a +2, just like Aaron is. Unfortunately, it gets worse in multiples. The second copy, you're going to have to start bouncing like one of your back row characters. So you're really only at like a +3 on 2 copies, but it lets you recur a lot of on-play effects, which this set has a notable number of good on-play effects to be recurring. And it just keeps your characters alive and somewhat denies reverses. It's not entirely denying them, because if you use 2 of these, your opponent can still attack the third character first. But even if they reverse that character, you can return it back to your hand if they frontal your Koga, right? So you're saving your characters. You're always getting the pluses here, unless your opponent has side attacks. But then you got a +1 because your Koga lived, and you reduced the damage. So that's pretty good. But this is one where bouncing these characters over and over again is really powerful with the event, because you can keep searching this climax, and you can keep using the combo every turn and recurring your characters. So that's a really nice synergy they've got going there. And since you're getting like +2, +3 every turn that you're doing this, you're going to have enough characters to play them and then sack them off to the event. Moving up to number 8, we have Dreaming Girl Shoko Makinohara. So this is an early play level 3. If you have 2 or fewer climaxes in your waiting room, during your turn it becomes an 11-5. Unfortunately, on defense, it's only a 95 still. And on play, it heals. So you're typically just playing this, attacking really big, hopefully killing something. And then on defense, you're a 95. We have ways to pump it up to like 11-5 or so, maybe a little bigger on defense in the deck. So a lot of times you'll be sort of pumping it up and just hoping to ride it out with a counter or something, and then get another turn with it. But a lot of this deck strategy at level 2 is just going to be playing a bunch of early play heals, and this is one of the ones you play. Alright, next we have Phantom Elder Sister, Shoko Makinohara. So this one is one of the cards that we can be recurring with the Koga bounce combo. So on play, you mill 2. If there's a climax, you give a character 1500, which can also pump the power of your Koga combo. And then the other effect is on play, pay 1, discard 1, search. So it just has good utility in getting the exact pieces you need, and it can mill through your first deck pretty quickly, and give power pumps to your reverse combos, which this set has a lot of on-reverse combos that you might be playing. Only really one of the combos that might see play is on attack, so the power every now and then is pretty relevant. But yeah, we also have a lot of ways in this deck to look at the top cards of our deck, and if there are ever cards that we don't like, the mill 2 can remove them, or we can drop search and shuffle them away. So this has a lot of ways to sort of keep changing the top card of our deck until it's something that we like. And you'll see why that's important a couple cards down the line. At number 6, we have Laplace's Demon, Tomoe Koga. So this is another level 0, also another good one to be bouncing with the Koga combo. So this one's on play, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and put them on top of your deck in any order. So this is one of the ways we have to manipulate the top cards, and then if neither of them are cards we like, we can say play the Shoko level 0, mill them both away, maybe look at the top cards again, or we can drop search and shuffle or anything like that. Like if we see 2 climaxes on top and we don't have a brainstorm, we can just drop search, shuffle them back in. Or if we just don't want a brainstorm, right? The other effect on Koga is on attack, choose one of your Adolescence characters and it gets plus 1500 until end of turn. Also, like I said, there's a lot of reverse combos in the set, so this is something you can play at level 1, check the top 2 cards of your deck, maybe it helps you hit a brainstorm or something, and then you pump power into your reverse combo and just keep getting even more pluses, right? And this is also cool because you can play this, check top 2, and then pump your Koga reverse combo. And if this lived on attack, or if you were able to like side into a 0 or something, you can bounce this back to hand and do it again next turn. So lots of cool synergies. And it can pump any of the level 1 combos, right? So there's a lot that it works pretty well with. Alright, at number 5 we have Schooling High School Idol, Noriko Toyohama. So this is one of the main top ends that gets played in the deck. So it has on play from hand or by a change effect. draw one, discard one, and then return one of your opponent's characters to your hand. So this is even more bounce utility, just like with the Koga. This one lets us filter for cards, whereas the Koga let us set our triggers. The card that changes into it is the yellow Notica down there, which is on play heal, and then climax phase, put this into waiting room to play the red Notica from your waiting room. So it's effectively a free change. So in any deck where you do have yellow, you're probably going to want to be playing the change as well. Just to get that extra heal built in there, because you can play it, heal, change, draw one, ditch one, bounce. And then the climax combo is one that works really well with this deck, because a lot of times, as I said, we're attacking into an empty board at level 3, and this is on attack if the climax is in play, and you have another Adolescence character, which you always will. You pay one, discard one, look at up to 4 cards from top of your opponent's deck, choose up to 4, put them in waiting room, and then you shuffle the rest back in. So since we're going to be swinging for like 4 damage, usually, into direct attacks, being able to rip climaxes out of our opponent's deck helps us stick that damage a lot more often. And it's on a comeback trigger, which is just good. At number 4, we have Sunset Sky, Kaede Azusagawa. So this is one of the other early plays that we're playing in this deck. If you have 4 more Adolescence characters, it gets -1 level in hand. So a lot of times the line of play is once you refresh and go to level 2, you early play the Shoko for having 2 or fewer climaxes, and then that fills out your board, so you fill the last slot with the Kaede, and you get the double early plays. On play, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's level 1 or lower, put it into your stock. So this is one of the reasons that we want to be playing a lot of these like top check effects, because it lets us hit our stock off of Kaede a lot more often. And getting her to be a 1-stock early play is pretty important to the deck, because you do spend a fair bit of stock on your level 3s, just because there's so many good ones in this deck. So you want to be getting that at 1 stock as often as possible. And then the last effect here is on play it heals. So unfortunately this is only 85, due to the pretty generous early play condition and being able to replace one of its stock. So a lot of times this one you're just playing down and it's dying, unless you have some big assists behind it and counters to back it up. So you really want that 1 stock. And that's really like my biggest drawback to this card, in my opinion, is that like when you don't get that 1 stock off of it, it's pretty rough on resource crunch. Just because like if you're ever trying to keep playing more healers, you're going to be draining your stock pretty heavily, which hurts your compression in the long run. And this is generally a deck that wants to play a grindier endgame and not like an explosive finish. Alright, so number 3, this card is, for most people, the reason to play the set. The most sort of unique draw to it. We have Cool and Collected Ryo Futaba. So first effect here is continuous. If this is in the middle position of center stage, it gains 4,000 power. Second effect is if your level is 3 or higher, it gets Great Performance, which is if this card is not reversed and in the middle position of center stage, all of your opponent's attacks become frontal attacks, with this card as the defending character. So you're a 12-5 and your opponent has to attack into it with all their lanes, and we have a couple ways to pump that to be even bigger. So a lot of times your opponent is swinging into like a 14-5, 15, sometimes even as big as like 18,000 power character. Which they're just going to have to crash all their lanes into most of the time. And then the last effect is when this card's battle opponent becomes reversed, pay 1, discard 1, deal 1 damage. So the goal here is to use this on defense when your opponent has to crash all 3 of their lanes into you. Since even if they heal down to 3-0, when they crash 3 lanes, you put them back up to 3-3, which means on your turn you only have to deal 4 to finish them off, which is a lot more reasonable than having to say you ping them on your turn, then they heal back down, and then you have to deal all 7, right? But this card is one of the first reasons that bounce utility is going to get a lot more powerful in the game. Since Ryo Futaba does not have a way to be like untargetable or anything, one of the most effective ways to deal with her is just to return her to your opponent's hand. So the Bunny Girl Senpai mirror match gets a little weird since you're already playing like the Koga level 3 and the Notica level 3 a lot of times. These futabas never really stick to the board in the mirror match, which is kind of weird. But yeah, so a lot of times you go at level 3, it's just going to be play this, make it really fat, and sit on it. And I'll show you how you sustain with it in a couple cards here. At number 2, we have Irreplaceable Existence, Mai Sakurajima. So this one is a 3/2 10k with 3 soul printed. It's a lot of soul. On play, from your hand or your memory, you put the top 2 cards of your deck into your waiting room and deal X damage to your opponent. X is equal to the number of level 2 or higher cards revealed among those cards. So unfortunately this one's kind of conflicting with the Kaede early play, because this wants you to play a lot of 2 or higher. Kaede wants you to play a lot of 1 or lower. But if you can just play this and like deal a damage, that's really good. Just on play, free deal 1 on a 3 soul body is powerful. We have a climax combo, is on attack deal 1 with another comeback trigger. So this is sort of the alternative finisher that you can play to the Nodoka. And then when this card is frontal attacked, put this card into your memory. And that's its sort of downside for having the 3rd soul. But it does mean that this always dodges reverse effects. Your opponent cannot reverse this, ever. So a lot of times what you'll be doing is that you play this, hopefully deal 1, maybe deal 2, play the climax, side attack, deal 1, and then since you're like 4 soul at that point, you're siding for 1 or 2. So you're just doing a ton of like small ping damage just to chip away at your opponent. And multiple lanes of that adds up really fast and can kill people for sure. So the thing about playing it from memory, the 2 other cards you can see down there, there's the 2/1 Sakuta assist. So that one has the ability, if you're level 2 or higher, you can pay 2, discard a character, and rest 2 characters to play the Mai from your memory. So you're effectively just paying the cost of playing it from hand, but also resting 2. And that triggers the effect to mill 2 and deal some more damage. So you can even early play this if you're playing the Sakuta. And then the other card is the event. It's a 3/1 event. You choose one of this Mai from your memory and play it to any position of stage, and it gains 5,000 until end of turn. That will also trigger the effect to mill 2 and deal some damage. So a lot of this engine is just based around getting her in memory and then recurring her over and over again to deal a bunch of damage. And there's also a level 0 Mai that didn't make this list, that when it goes to waiting room, I believe, or gets reversed, you get to choose the Mai from the level 3 Mai from waiting room and send it to your memory, optionally. So that's a way that you can get like 1 or 2 of them in there early to set up for all this. And last we have my number 1 card is Devilish Kohai Tomoe Koga. So this is a 3/2 75 assist. All of your adolescence characters in front of this get plus 2,000 power. And then on play, you discard 1 to put the top card of your clock into your stock. So this comes down for 1 stock and heals you, and is an assist. So it's making your Futaba level 3 really big, so that it's blocking a lot of attacks. The last effect we have here is Act, pay 5. If all players are level 3 or higher, all players put up to 4 cards from the top of their clock into their waiting room. So this lets you basically reset both players' clocks at any point at level 3. It's really good if you hit your opponent right 2-3, or they heal back down to 3-0 and then hit you up to like 3-3 or 3-4. You can just use this effect, heal back down to 3-0, and now you're on an even playing field to finish out the game. Basically any time that your clock gets a little too high for comfort, you can just use this and reset it, which is really powerful in the long run. You're definitely not doing this multiple times per game because of how expensive it is, and anytime if your opponent is at like 3-5 or 3-6, you definitely don't want to be putting them back down to 3-1 or 3-2 when you can just kill them. But it definitely has points where it's useful if you fall behind and need to even things out a little bit. The big thing here, as I mentioned earlier, this deck does play standby quite often. So not only is this a sort of one-stock healer that's pumping your Futaba, it can also be pumping your early plays at level 2. If you play your early plays, play the standby and put this in back row, or just trigger the standby, which oftentimes means that like your Shoko is going to be 11-5, your Kaede is going to be 10-5, maybe even a little bigger if you're playing like level assists or something. And that means that the counters, like a counter will usually win their lane. So if you have the anti-change counter, you will often be 2-for-1ing if your opponent frontals into one of your early plays. You can play the anti-change counter, win that lane, and pop their other early play, which is really good because there's a lot of early play decks right now, and scaring them away from frontal attacking into your characters is pretty good because that's basically anti-damage at that point. Either they're frontal attacking, you kill their other level 3 and prevent an attack, or they side, which is basically the same as preventing their attacks. So it can scare away early play decks and just set you up really well in general. So yeah, that is my top 11. Here's a quick recap on what I think the top 10 cards in the set are. There are definitely a lot of other cards that are worth playing. A lot of cards in this set are not super powerful on their own. Even like these early plays are pretty typical early plays. Pretty like fairly normal drop search, a little better than average. Nothing in this set is really like mind-blowingly good, but when it all comes together into one package, it does make for quite a formidable deck. And here we go with an updated tier list, sort of wrapping up the end of the fall season, and looking at where I think Bunny Girl Senpai will probably fall into the placements. As you can see, D tier is gone, because nobody really cares about most of those decks anyway, and they were just taking up a lot of space. I've shifted a lot of decks from A down into B, mostly just due to poor performance this season. The meta really is centralized sort of near the top, with these B tier decks just every now and then sneaking in some, usually top 8 placements, every now and then sneaking in like a top 3 or 2. And the C tier decks are sort of ones that have modern game plans, but just not quite enough to get there. But yeah, I think Bunny Girl Senpai falls pretty solidly into A. The Futaba level 3 gives a lot of decks problems. Attack on Titan has to work pretty hard to get over it. Bang Dream has to work pretty hard to get over it. It can stop Yukina. Even the Mai sending itself to memory can stop Yukina. It does do not great against Konosuba, since the Megumin level 3 can just send it to clock. Love Live Sunshine, if they're playing ways to bounce it, can get around it. But a lot of these decks are going to have to just be crashing their board into it, which makes Bunny Girl Senpai pretty powerful. At the very least, it will be pretty warping in terms of deck builds, since people are going to have to start playing more ways to bounce things. And I'm wondering if this might see, like, Review Starlight goes up in play a little bit, since Kaoruko bounces anyway. Or maybe, not much else that we have bounces right now. The Love Live Sunshine might start playing theirs more, hopefully. But that's really about it, actually. Persona 5 has Ryuji combo. But in general, Futaba's pretty tough to deal with, and not many decks can, especially with counter, she's hitting like 20,000, not many decks can get that high to reverse her. So yeah, I think Bunny Girl Senpai is going to be a pretty good deck. I'm not completely sure if it's going to be like the standby build or a more aggressive build early on, that's using a lot of sort of advantage building climax combos to push Soul, and then sort of stabilize with the Futaba top end to close out the game, or if they're going to be more of the grindy standby builds from Japan. But I'm sure we'll find out in the spring season. Maybe we'll see it getting some play in Anaheim or at Worlds. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys with some deck builds next time.